Rule number 2 says that the focus of any communication should be on the audience. Now, I've used the word audience here, and by audience I mean anybody who's receiving the communication. It could be a group like we have here, but it could be an individual who you're talking to. It could be somebody who's reading your book or your memorandum or your report. It's the person or people receiving the communication. And the focus of the communication must be on the audience. Now, this is very important too, and so often we break it. Let me give an example. I want you to imagine that you want a salary increase. Look, I know you're all paid far too much more money. You can't imagine wanting any more, but just work with me here, okay? Just imagine you want a salary increase. So you go to your boss, and I'm going to give you 4 things that you will use that will help you get a salary increase. You've got to choose one. The first one, I deserve more money because my wife's just had a new baby. Okay? Remember that one. Or, number 2, I deserve more money because I'm a really nice guy. It's my favourite. I think that's my favourite. Number 3, I deserve more money because rehiring and training a replacement is more expensive than a reasonable increase. Or number 4, I deserve more money because I have performed well this year. Okay, who thinks number 1's most likely to get a salary increase? Nope. What about number 2? Who thinks number 2? You're a tough lot here, aren't you? What about number 3? Who thinks number 3 is most likely to get a salary increase? Nobody? One hand goes up there. What about number 4? Who thinks number 4? Show of hands. Everybody. Okay, pretty much everybody else. All right. There's only one there that looks at rule number 2, or is using rule number 2, and that is number 3, not number 4. Now, of course, you're thinking number 4 because you're thinking as a subordinate. But you're already paid to perform well this year. That's what you're paid for already. The way in which your boss is most likely to be thinking, and those of you who are bosses in this room will know this, the way in which your boss is most likely to be thinking is that rehiring and training a replacement is more expensive than a reasonable increase, so maybe I should give him a bob or 2. That's the way bosses think. Now, you may not want to rephrase your request in that way, but you would certainly want to focus on the needs of the audience, what people care about. So often in communication, we make the mistake on focusing on what we care about when we're trying to get an idea across, instead of focusing on what the audience cares about. It's very important. You need to focus on what people you're presenting or speaking or writing for care about. Now, there are some easy examples of this. For instance, if you are writing a children's book, you would plainly write about things that the children can relate to. If not, then plainly you wouldn't get that message across to the child. It's exactly the same if you're writing an article for a magazine. If you're writing for the You magazine, for instance, you would write in a different way than if you were writing for The Economist, for instance. You have a different audience and you would communicate in a different way. Because you know that the people who are writing those magazines know they have to focus on what the audience cares about. And they're different, of course. Different groups of people think about different things. Give you another example. I was listening to a speech by Bill Clinton some years ago when he was running America there. Now, I'm not a great Bill Clinton fan. I didn't think America could do any worse than Bill Clinton until George Bush took over. Another story altogether. In any event, I'm not a great Clinton fan, but he is a great orator. He's a very good speaker and making most of his money nowadays speaking, doing the speaking circuit. He's a great speaker. And I was listening to him talking about I was listening on the radio, he was talking about some war or other that America was involved in. There were so many that he was involved in, I forget which one. But during that speech, he was talking about some war. And I was only half listening on the radio, half listening to what he had to say. Then he said this. He said, I have to do these things for the sake of the world's children. And I started to listen to that. Hell, I've got 5 children. I can relate to the world's children. So I started to listen. And I listened right the way through to the end of the speech. And you see, he grabbed my attention. In fact, he was saying nothing about the world's children, and we were just talking about his efforts to conquer some island or other. But by saying I have to do these things for the sake of the world's children, he grabbed my attention. And that's what he was trying to do. It was just a technique to grab my attention by focusing on the needs of the audience. And of course, as the President of America talking on the radio, he's talking to pretty much the world. And there are very few things that everybody in the world care about, but one of them is children. So by weaving that into his speech, he was able to grab the attention of me in that case, and then be able to continue on with whatever he wanted to say, having got my attention. We can learn from that. When you are writing or when you are speaking to communicate to a group, focus on what they care about. Weave into whatever you're saying something that they care about to grab their attention. Then when you've got their attention, then you can talk about the real issues that you want to talk about. So, rule number 2, focus on the needs of the audience. Understand your audience, and then focus very clearly on what they care about.